All right, so today I'm going to be talking about mental illness and healthcare in North Korea. To start off with, healthcare in North Korea is a socialist system. North Korea claims to have free healthcare when in reality, a patient's wealth and Songbun status determine if they live or die. Only the top 1%, the elite, have access to truly free healthcare in Pyongyang, and these are the people that the Kim dynasty favorited and those with long family histories of devotion to the regime, and only around 20% can even afford to pay a doctor. Hospital conditions in North Korea are extremely poor. Most hospitals have no heating or electricity, and I even read that there have been times when there have been no running water. Wealthier patients can pay for self-made heaters or firewood, and doctors often perform surgeries with the use of a battery-powered flashlight. Patients also have to provide their own medical instruments and medication, which means that they have to go out and buy it for themselves, often on the black market. And patients often go without anesthesia or pain medication during surgeries in order to save money. There's also no x-rays, MRIs, or other valuable technology, so people can be misdiagnosed all the time. Several international organizations provide medical aid to North Korea, but this equipment and medicine often land in the hands of merchants and are sold for a lot of money instead of being in the hospitals for free. It's also extremely unsanitary, and infection rates are high and typically end in death. And this video is an example of a surgery, and it ended in a woman dying from her infections 2 days later.
의사가 입은 수술 가운과 환자를 덮은 천은 너무 오랫동안 빨지 않아 뗏물에 절었습니다. 그러나 가장 큰 문제는 턱없이 부족한 마취약입니다. 복부 절개 수술을 하면서도 마취약이 없어 전신 마취는커녕 아주 제한된 양의 부분 마취만이 이루어집니다. 때문에 수술을 받는 이 젊은 여인은 수술대 위에서 물고 고통을 참아내야 합니다. 수술 부위를 닦아내는 거즈는 몇 번을 썼는지 마치 걸레 같습니다. 북한 병원의 이 같은 충격적인 수술 장면은 2달 반 동안 북한의 의료 실상을 조사한 국경 없는 의사회에 의해 오늘 세계 언론에 공개됐습니다. 국경 없는 의사회는
These are some images from inside of hospitals in North Korea. There is a North Korean defector that I watch on YouTube, and this is a story from her, Yeonmi Park, and it just tells her story of an experience that she had in the North Korean healthcare system.
Before my escape, I was trying to escape with my own sister, who was 16 years old at the time. But before our escape, I was suddenly got really having this bad stomach ache. My parents took me to the hospital, and in the hospital, we did not have x-rays, not to mention MRIs or none of those machines to see what's wrong with you. This doctor was rubbing my belly that afternoon and said, "Oh, I think she got some appendix, might burst soon, so we need to operate on her right now, in a few hours." But that time when I was going into the hospital, literally the hospital beds were stains of blood everywhere, and people didn't have enough place to lie down, so they were even lying down in these hallways. And literally nurse in our room using this 1 needle, this is a huge needle too, using this 1 needle to inject on everyone. What I know, if those patients have other disease, you actually have a chances of you going to hospital and gaining new disease was higher than not going there. So she was injecting everyone with those 1 needle she had, and the hospitals were using these beer bottles from the trash dump and using it as a drop. And that afternoon, when the doctors had to operate, of course, my mom had to bribe these doctors. And they say, we don't have penicillin, so if you don't want her to get infection, you need to go to black market to buy the penicillin. My mom had to borrow money from the neighbors and bought the penicillin. Without that, I would have been dead from the infection. And the doctors were operating that afternoon without any anesthesia. I was like screaming, and it felt like while they were operating, cut my belly and everything, I was losing my mind and coming back, losing my mind and coming back, and felt like entire my internal organs were just coming up, pulling out. Somebody was stretching it. It is, there's no way you can stay awake that time. I was keep losing my mind and coming back, losing my mind and coming back. And I don't even know how I dared to read it. I just don't even know.
And in the end, it even turned out that she didn't have appendicitis, and it was just a result of malnutrition and infection. And on the women's healthcare side of things, there is an extreme lack of sex education in schools. And on page 75 of the book, she talks about the lack of sexual awareness amongst her and her team of friends. She says that the party was extraordinarily bashful when it came to telling us how life itself is made. I believed I could get pregnant if I kissed a man or held hands with him. My girlfriends thought the same. The boys' ignorance of sex was just as bad. And there's also no contraception. It's a luxury that no one can afford. Abortion became illegal in 2000, and it was often used in order to still be able to provide enough for the older children of the mother and the rest of the family. Abortions would take place on kitchen tables by candlelight at night, and mothers would often die of blood infections due to not removing the entirety of the baby's tissue. And to find out if a woman is pregnant in North Korea, a doctor would just rub her stomach, and that's it. There's no ultrasounds. There's also no epidural. And when women are treated extremely poorly by doctors for showing any signs of pain during birth. There's no pumps for breast milk, no strollers, no disposable diapers, and no formula. And when a mother dies giving birth, or when she just has a young child, there are extreme problems that happen because there's no formula and no pumps for breast milk. The babies often starve. Many doctors in their 30s or younger are also extremely unqualified, and the doctors do not work honorably or take pride in saving lives. It's mostly for money. And once they are placed in hospitals, they often need to work hard to repay a bribe that they gave for their good positions. And many North Koreans turn to doctors and surgeons who practice illegally instead, and it provides convenience, expertise, and resources not found in government-run hospitals. People often buy medical advice from street vendors at the markets instead of going to actual doctors. And despite all of the information I just provided, these lofty slogans can still be found within North Korean hospitals. People who go against the regime, have public outbursts, or defy law enforcement are often diagnosed and sent away to mental institutions called Number 49 hospitals. It's believed that mental illness is linked to nutrition because when people eat, they improve. People in North Korea say that the smart people are often the ones to become mentally ill, and it's because they're talented and smart that they become frustrated by the restrictions, and they are often the ones seen in the streets having hallucinations and nervous breakdowns. Counseling and psychotherapy also don't exist, and the poor state of mental institutions really discourages medical students from becoming psychiatrists. There's also extreme prejudice against mental health, and there's a lot of discomfort around displays of emotion in North Korea. On page 67, Lee quoted, "My father kept everything bottled up. as many in North Korean men did. They could not talk about their feelings or mention the fear and stress they were under. Sufferers of depression and other mental illnesses often drank or did drugs in order to suppress their emotions. And this can be seen in the book with Jian So after Hyun Seo Lee ran and didn't marry him. And the quote from the book from page 132 says, "To my great surprise, she said, 'Please come back, Miran, for my son's sake. He's not the same. He's been very depressed since you left. Jian So is depressed over me? Could I talk to him?' He was weeping when he came to the phone. He sounded drunk and couldn't form his words properly." Number 49 hospitals are located on the mountain, far away from anywhere people live, and patients of these hospitals are called number 49 subjects. The patients are beaten and starved by the staff and rarely return after being committed. Permission from family is needed in order to be committed. The treatments in mental hospitals include insulin coma therapy, which is when patients are repeatedly injected with massive doses of insulin to produce daily comas for several weeks at a time. And there's an image down at the right-hand corner, and that is the insulin coma being administered. And methamphetamine is also used, and as well as beatings and starvation. Suicide in North Korea in 2012, according to the World Health Organization, 9,790 suicides have taken place in North Korea, a country of 22.5 million people. Suicide is viewed as an act of treason against the state. And in the book, it quotes, "In North Korea, suicide is taboo. Not only is it considered gravely humiliating to the surviving family members, it also guarantees that any children left behind will be reclassified as hostile in the Songbun system and denied university entrance and the chance of a good job." And when her father died, the hospital death certificate stated that he had committed suicide by overdosing on Valium. This drug was readily available in the markets. He must have gone out and bought it himself. My questions for you are, in what ways do you think that Hyun Seo Lee's life would be different if her father had made it out of the hospital alive, or if he hadn't even gotten arrested in the first place? And is it possible that the hospital lied in the records and that her father actually didn't kill himself? These are my sources, and thank you for listening.